In today's episode of the Pathmark Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Tom McFadyen, and he's hailing over as the head of marketing at Signable. And at Signable, they're all about fast signed documents, right? And you obviously know it's a very, very interesting space, fast-growing companies in the area. And today we want to really deep dive what Signable is all about. But actually, quite interesting as well how also Tom is thinking about growth for the company, because it's a very wide used use case. People do need to sign documents all the time. So I'm very curious about the approach that Tom and his team are taking. We want to deep dive today a little bit into growing a marketing team, right? That's key. A lot of you marketers listening out there at the very moment have to hire, will hire very soon. So let's also deep dive a little bit in Tom's learnings from that angle. So Tom, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Of course. So, give us that 360 overview. What is Signable all about?
Sure. I've been trying to work on this elevator pitch for that as well. So at Signable, we are a UK-based electronic signature platform. We help organizations of all different kind of shapes and sizes to send important documents to be signed quickly, easily, and in a very cost-effective manner, all of which happens online.
Very good. And tell us, obviously many of us have heard and used some form of e-sign documents products. Is there a specific use case? Is there particular types of companies that leverage you guys more than others? Do certain companies fit specifically well?
Well, it's an interesting one. We have all sorts of different clients. We've worked with global sized big businesses, but we also work with a lot of different freelancers and kind of small one-man band kind of companies. We do find generally a lot of our customers come from the property sector, finance, retail, but it's very much very, very seasonal in some respects. We have some customers that come through all the time, property sector being one of those. But take, for instance, around kind of August, September time, education is always, we've got lots of different educational establishments that come to us during that time period. So, I'd say, all sorts kind of come to us.
And what would you say? Because that's quite interesting, because a product like Signable can be relevant in a lot of different functions, right? It can be on the sales side, it can be on internal administrations, it can be HR, like everybody kind of needs to sign documents in one or the other way. Who's typically the champion within those companies? Or is it more like a bottom-up approach where some people detect it and start signing documents? Maybe tell me a bit about that.
I think, it's not necessarily one size fits all on that one. But I think perhaps like the kind of second option that you have there, that does happen quite a lot. We get a lot of, obviously, as you say, every company needs to send documents, and there's a variety of different kind of departments that would need to do that. So perhaps operations, HR kind of departments would be looking into that.
Cool. And how do they learn about Signable? Or in other words, what are the client acquisition channels that you guys leverage in their sort of journey from hearing about Signable and then actually getting started?
Sure. So, I mean, this is something I'm very happy about when it comes to our marketing. We're very much a very kind of multi-channel, diversified kind of marketing strategy. If you if you search e-signatures, electronic signatures, you'll on Google, our SEO kind of organic profile, I feel, is very strong. We've got. We're a UK-based company. We have some pretty big hitters when it comes to our competitors that people would recognise. But I think the work we've done, I think people would be surprised to see kind of where we kind of rank on Google. We have very robust PPC strategy. Again, Google Ads. But we're also we spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, things like that. We find a lot with great word. We get really great word of mouth. We've got a fantastic affiliate scheme in place, and we get a lot of referrals. And we spend a lot of time kind of trying to build partnerships and relationships. We've been putting a lot of efforts more recently into trying to really add to our review sites and Trustpilot. And we've seen a massive amount of kind of uplift in that. Just even this year, actually, in the first quarter of the year, getting reviews on Trustpilot from there. So, that's a few of the different things that we've kind of got going. One of the other things I would say as well is we get a lot of customers who maybe they sign a document for the first time using us, and then they find, they realize maybe they need to use the product themselves, and that's always a good path, I think, to trying us out.
That's an interesting flywheel motion there, people signing and then getting to you start using it. Now, how do you think about the website? You mentioned a lot of sort of self-serve channels, right? They're coming via search, they explore you guys' solution. What role does the website play in your in your perspective for the journey?
A massive part, personally. I think so. Just firstly, actually, we're talking about, if we're talking about SEO and PPC, we're driving people to the website to sign up for a free trial. That's what we initially offer, 14 days free. But also, it's not that e-signatures, e-signatures have been around for 20 years. It's not that it's this brand new technology, but it is something I think we still need to educate people on, and kind of have enough content there to kind of explain, and kind of people may rightfully have maybe some worries sometimes. And I think driving them to the website where they can find out about security or legality, how it would fit in with their company as well, how scalable it is, what we offer. It's a very competitive marketplace, and what we offer versus our competitors. All that to me is it lives on the website, and it's very important to kind of be pushing them there from my point of view.
Yeah, very, very good. And typically marketers we have on the show, they're very critical with the website, because especially if it plays such a crucial role when in a free trial driven motion. What do you consider sort of a major strength of the website versus where do you see, hey, there's even room for further improvement, or things that you have in mind where sort of the website should develop towards to?
Well, that's a really good question, actually. So the big room for improvement I see is something we're actually doing right now. We have a new lead designer with the company, who has been doing some fantastic work with us. Only joined relatively recently, but they are working on redesigning our homepage, making just all sorts of tweaks, from things like the menu and fonts to bigger hitters with the homepage. We get a lot. We have seen an uplift in traffic consistently, an uplift in business consistently for several years now. We get a lot of traffic coming to the homepage. And a big part of me is, because I'm the person who can put together, a big part of me will always be a little bit, I like a lot of what's on the homepage, but at the same time, when I first saw the new designs that we got from our new designer, it kind of showed the difference between me as a marketer with a little bit of design knowledge, not much, versus somebody who actually 100% knows what they're doing, and the big difference there. So that would be simultaneously the thing that I would see is I'm really looking forward to is improving it, and maybe just building a better mousetrap, I guess. But also is something that I think has been up to a point was a bit of a strength for a wee while there as well. I would also say, just talk about the website. I mentioned PPC. Just something as simple as the landing pages that we've kind of put together over the years, and constantly retesting and A/B testing and making changes there. I think that's had a very positive effect on on our kind of uplift of people coming in for free trials via PPC.
Very cool. Yeah, and it shows that you're very sort of experimental about figuring out different landing pages, different approaches. Is there something that you've learned over the years? Maybe certain methods, approaches, maybe tools that help you to figure out why people do or do not convert on the website into trials? Anything that a way or a strategy that you?
I'm big on the A/B testing. The obvious one is with something like Google Ads, where you can just line up two different landing pages, or you could. We have experimented with tools like Google Optimize a fair bit, and sort of things adjacent to that. And so I've always found those very, very kind of useful in that kind of way. We've so that's what I would say there. I think I would recommend that everybody look into either split testing software or something like Google Optimize and see if it can kind of help make those decisions. Similar to maybe something like it's a little bit different, but using things like Hotjar just to kind of see some real-time data on what people are doing when they're coming to the site and things like that.
That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned actually PPC quite a bit. A topic that has been recently coming up quite a bit in the podcast is the cookieless future, right? Is that something that in your industry is already sort of, marketers already start talking about? Is that because it hits it seems like, at least what we can show from the perspective of the show, like different industries sort of start, the e-commerce guys already focusing a lot on it. Like, what's this? What do you see? Like, do people go into it already?
I think, I mean, it does affect us. I don't think my feeling so far is it's not perhaps because I've listened to some of your other podcasts before this, and I was hearing examples where I can 100% see how that would be directly affecting the person kind of talking about it. Obviously, like anything, it has an effect on us. I think one of the main things is, and that we don't have that feeling that the sky is falling on it. Like I think one of the things that I like to encourage within the team is, so we have I mentioned A/B testing, and kind of we want to test things, and it's very much a kind of, we prefer to test it and fail than not, like kind of thing. And I do like to think that we've got our kind of ear to the ground, and we want to know what's coming up. And there's been some changes with Google Ads that have been kind of over the last few months, which mean that things have kind of changed a little bit there for us as well. But things are going to change. Things all that's one of the main things I think I've learned in the last, like my marketing career, is things evolve, things change. You can't act like the sky is falling with it, because there's no way you can stop it. Like so you have to figure out how you're going to adapt with that. Specific to kind of cookies, I think we will, hopefully we'll be okay. We spend a lot. We don't do a massive amount of campaigns directly with third-party data, around third-party data. I think a lot of our stuff is around getting the first-party data, which everything I've listened to with you guys and everything I've been reading seems to suggest is the thing to do. But in all honesty, it's just one of those. I do have a kind of feeling of, let's wait and see. When it happens, and we'll kind of deal with the fallout and so on.
Makes sense. Very, very interesting. I would love to switch gears a little bit. We've talked a little bit about what Signable is doing, who you're serving, the use cases, also about the channels. Obviously, very inbound heavy a scenario tied to a free trial. I would love to learn a little bit more about your journey as a marketer, because there is so much content out there for marketers at the very moment. You could, continuously read and learn and improve. Like, where do you like to read? What's the places where you self-educate yourself?
Where do I like to read? I got to say, one of the really great things about my company is that we have basically a £50 development budget every month for people to spend on whatever they want. And I don't know if it needs to be £50. I don't know, but it's just something I think I've seen I would really recommend other people look into something like that, because it's one thing to kind of direct people and go, you should be reading this, or you should look at this, but putting the kind of, I guess, the impetus back on them is always going to be better, or I think it will. Personally, what that has meant to me is I just read quite a lot. Like, it's given me the opportunity to, you got the Amazon wish list of old books, new books, everything in between. It's been fantastic. I listen to a lot of podcasts, read, variety of different things online. Recently I've joined the Chartered Institute of Marketing, CIM. So, I got me personally, I got into marketing a little bit late. I went back to university, kind of swapped careers in my mid-20s. And I only graduated and really started my marketing career maybe going on 6-7 years ago. So, and since then I've always kind of seen it as want to kind of keep learning and kind of, keep kind of, not standing still, I guess. And, I've got the CIM, I'm looking to do a diploma with CIM starting in May, very, very, very soon. And, just, kind of keeping my own learning kind of going, and not just the last thing I ever want to do is just get to that position where I've completed it. I know everything. I don't need to I know everything. I don't need to kind of ever worry about everything, because as we're going back to that previous question, things change, things evolve. You do need to have, I think, your ear to the ground on what's going on. Yeah.
Very cool. Very, very good. One thing you and me chatted actually prior was, growing the team, growing the marketing team, right? We have a lot of marketers listening in who very often is 2-people team, 3-people teams, sometimes 5-people teams, and have to start growing them. Maybe if you could share one learning that you take away, what it means and what is important when building up a marketing team that is maybe not as obvious, maybe something that you've learned along that journey for yourself.
It's a good question. I think going back to the development point, I think I've worked in places so one of the things I've been very fortunate with while working with Signable. I've been here 4 years. We've not seen a massive amount of kind of turnover with staff, and we've been able to grow. I've worked in places that I learned a lot in or enjoyed working in, but I've worked in places that had quite high turnover of staff. And I think one of the things when I look back on them was that lack of ability, lack of room to develop. I'm not necessarily meaning that in so much as oh right, so develop, a year in, I'm a marketing exec, let's move me up to senior marketing exec, let's move me up to manager. But identifying what somebody wants to do, I'm really backing them on it. So I mentioned we've got a £50 a month development budget. That's one thing, but the company also supports if people are doing kind of different courses within the company. We've got lots of people who've identified things that they want to do, and they've made the case and they've made the pitch, and we've supported that because simultaneously we know it's going to help the company because we're still a growing company. We've got lots of areas that maybe we need to know more about or we need to have kind of covered. But also from their point of view, we don't want people kind of standing still, and we want people to kind of have the opportunity to learn more. And I think that's one of the big things that I personally really felt with that, making sure that people have the opportunity and feel like they have the opportunity to develop, and make it very clear, signposting it, make it very clear how they can go about that, and and just supporting it, at the end of the day. And I do think going back to that point as I made earlier, I think you have to put it back on the team. I think you can help guide, you can suggest, but at the end of the day, it's their choice. And if you're speaking to somebody and you point them in a direction they don't want to go, they might do it for a wee while, they might do it for a few months, but they will end up wanting to change gears and maybe go somewhere else. And I would prefer. I've got a great team, and I would prefer to try and keep everybody with the team, if possible.
Very good. No, very interesting. I have some rapid fire questions to wrap it up for today, to get to know you and your journey a little bit better. They're a bit of surprise for our guests, but the regular listeners know them. So if you've listened to the podcast, you might have picked up on some of them already, but they're harmless. You ready for those?
Yeah, let's go.
What's the last book you read or the last podcast you listened to?
Ooh, so I have actually, I picked this up and listened to one podcast. So the last book I finished was I had a bad bout of COVID a few weeks ago, and during it I sat and read June Messiah, which has nothing to do with marketing, but I highly recommend it. Great book. The most recent marketing business book I read was a book called Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. Feels like it very much certainly reading it very much applies to our industry, but really recommend that one.
What's one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Expansion, both kind of, I guess, domestically, but we're looking to expand globally at the moment. And that is something which I think is, at this point is permeating throughout the company. It's something that we're all concentrating on. If
there would be no boundaries in tech, right? Everything is possible. What's the one thing you would fix for your role today?
Reliable attribution or reliable data, I think is the one there. We haven't really spoken about that so much, but yeah, being able to just having that knowledge that if I look in Google Analytics, it's something I can believe that's exactly the kind of case, analytics or whatever tool it might be. But that's the one I would say.
What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
Probably reliable attribution to an extent. But I think, again, going back to the development thing, I do spend a lot of time thinking about and probably worrying about a little bit, do my team, not just my team, but people in the company, do they feel, are they aware of the opportunities to develop? Are they, are they enough? are they happy with it? Things like that. I think that does keep me up at night a bit.
I want to pick you up on the point of the reliable attribution, because you mentioned that twice. For somebody who's not as deep in it, maybe marketers who are not as deep in paid acquisition, maybe can you give them an overview? Like, what's the issue? Like, what is the problem? Because a lot of people say it, but probably they might also slightly mean different things. Like, what I would say
with attribution, like I think, sorry, did you say paid attribution there? So with paid, I think we're in a good place when it comes to with ads, for instance. We can pretty much attribute conversions that come in and put ROI on that. But I do think one of the issues we may have is a little bit with we've got. I think it's just something that happens with a growing company. You have all these different pots that information lives in, and I think being able to maybe pop it all in one place and it's kind of easy to kind of understand is part of it. There is part of it with I guess with some of the stuff with maybe when it comes to some of our other platforms, just being 100% sure that we can trust the data and the core of it. There's some stuff that I don't want to get super into. Like,
okay. No, so I'm just curious, just high level interest to see how marketers think about it. Very good.
Certainly, just be at the core of it, just being able to look at across platform and being able to trust that that's definitely true.
That makes a lot of sense. And for the very last question, I want to do a little bit of time travel. You mentioned already, you did sort of, an education path there. Let's go back to the days of Glasgow, Caledonian University. What's the one advice you would give yourself for your journey? And I think it's I would love to hear your advice there, because you mentioned you switched careers a little bit. Maybe speak out there to the people who are getting into marketing at the moment. What's one advice you could give them for their journey?
Not be so hard on yourself. I don't know if that can be unique to me. Like, I think a lot of people, I think when I graduated, I was, especially because when I had my kind of first kind of done some internships, when I had my entry level job, I was I was probably at the age that a lot of people are further on in their careers. Mm-hmm. I did realize very early on when I went back to university, you can't spend your time comparing yourself to everybody else on that, otherwise it would drive yourself crazy. But I did beat myself up a bit, like early on, about about not being the complete marketer, like kind of instantly. And it probably helped in some ways, because maybe it pushed me to keep on developing and pushed me to learn more. And all that, but I think as well, maybe it showed itself in a bad way at times. And what I would mean by that is, as I started to progress, my boss shared a great article a few months ago called "Giveaway." I think it was called "Give Away Your Legos," and I think I've seen that this again. It's not unique to me. I've seen it pop up, but as I moved up and started having people reporting into me and things like that, I was terrible. I'm really bad at delegating. Really bad at letting things go, like, because you get to the point where it's like you put it all on yourself, and there's part of it maybe it's a bit of ego, a bit of arrogance. It's like, oh, I can do this better. I know how this should look. I know how to do this. I'll do this myself. Why? I don't want to give it away. No reflection on the people that I was working with. A complete reflection on myself. So I would say that, and I would also say as I moved up, to actually. You got to trust in people. You have to trust in your team, and you have to, do that. And I think holding on to those things, you can't hold on to that work forever. You can't. So, that's why I would say there. Keep developing, but probably give yourself a bit of breathing room, and kind of don't be too hard on yourself. And also, trust in the people that you work with. And going back to actually the initial point that we were talking about as well, things will change. You will need to adapt, but when that happens, the sky isn't falling. Like, it's not just influence. It's not just happening to me. It's happening to everyone. And I think those are the kind of things I try and keep in mind. And I think they've been pretty good for me at the moment so far. So
very cool. Tom, I really appreciate you took the time with us today to be a guest on Pathmark Presents. So I'm going to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about Signable today, what's the one thing they should remember?
they should go to Signable. Let me say that again. They should go to signable.co.uk. And they should sign up for a 14-day free trial and check it out for themselves. That's
great. Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathfind Presents.